All right, so we're diving into a story today, a story about football, but also, well, about the choices we make, choices that can completely derail even the most promising careers.
Yeah, it's a tough one.
Marlon King. The name probably rings a bell, Premier League fans especially, but it's not just the goals, right?
Right.
It's the other stuff, the stuff that landed him in court more than once. So we've got a stack of articles here covering the highs and, let's be honest, some really devastating lows. What we're trying to understand is how someone with that much potential, that much talent, ends up, well, where he did.
Yeah, and that's the thing that really gets you, That's what really jumps out from all of this. It's that contrast, right?
Mhm.
You see the early promise, the guy's playing for Watford, Wigan Athletic, even gets called up to the Jamaican national teams. Like, this is it. This is the dream.
Living the dream.
Exactly. And yet at the same time, almost from the get-go, there are these red flags.
Right from the start. And that's what I find interesting, this first conviction, receiving stolen goods. Okay, a BMW convertible. Not exactly small potatoes,
No, exactly.
but still, you could almost write it off. Young guy, maybe a bit reckless, bad judgment, whatever. But then, knowing what we know now, was it just a blip, or was it already a sign of something more serious?
Hard to say looking back,
Right.
right? But it's true. It's rarely just a one-off, is it? And sure enough, in 2009, things escalate, and they escalate badly. The sexual assault and ABH conviction,
Yeah,
that's not just legal trouble anymore. That changes how people see him forever.
absolutely.
This was a young woman, a university student, out in a nightclub, and the details are, well, they're awful. Groping her, then the violence, a broken nose, other injuries. I mean, it paints a very different picture
Completely
to
different.
the one we see on the pitch.
And the reaction to it, I mean, it sent shockwaves right through the footballing world. 18 months in prison, Wigan Athletic. They dropped him immediately. You'd think that would be it, the wake-up call, the biggest possible consequence. So was his career over at that point? I mean, did anyone even think about taking him after that?
You would think, wouldn't you? The stigma that comes with that kind of offense, especially in the public eye, it's huge. And it did have an impact, for sure. Some clubs wouldn't touch him, said it would damage their reputation. Understandably, there were a few short contracts here and there, attempts to, I guess, rebuild his career. But that conviction, it was always there, hanging over him.
A shadow, yeah. So some second chances, but always that uphill battle. Did he ever, address what happened publicly? I mean, did he express remorse? Anything to suggest he understood that he was trying to change? Or was it just straight back to business as usual?
Well, that's where it gets complicated. There were apologies, statements released through, PR people, but there were also attempts to downplay his role, shift the blame. A lot of people questioned how sincere he was being.
Right. Because
And unfortunately, actions speak louder than words, right? And in 2014, just a few years later, he's involved in this hit-and-run incident, causes serious injury. Another prison sentence. It's a pattern. And it makes you wonder about genuine change, doesn't it?
it really does. And it makes you think, were there points where things could have gone differently after that first conviction? Could there have been some kind of intervention, counseling maybe, mentorship,
Yeah.
something to address whatever was going on? Or even after 2009, after everything, could there have been a more focused effort on rehabilitation, not just punishment?
That's $1 million question, isn't it? Was there a missed opportunity somewhere? It's hard to say for sure now, but these are the conversations we need to be having, especially when you're talking about young athletes thrust into this world of fame and fortune, often without the support or guidance they need.
It's a sad story, really. Tragic, even. And you're right, King's story is often held up as a cautionary tale, look what can happen, that sort of thing. But it seems to me it highlights something else, this really complicated interplay between talent, opportunity, the choices we make, and the lack of a clear path back, a roadmap to redemption.
Absolutely. It's messy. It leaves us with more questions than answers, if we're being honest. What does meaningful rehabilitation actually look like in a case like this? Can someone with a past like Marlon King's ever truly outrun it? Or are they, or any of us, forever defined by our worst actions? Tough questions, but important ones we all need to think about, I think.